Before the world knew Selma, before Bloody Sunday shocked the nation, there was Jimmie Lee Jackson, a 26-year-old veteran, church deacon, and activist whose quiet courage would ignite a fire that changed the course of American history. But his name is rarely mentioned. Why? Today we uncover the life, death, and legacy of Jimmie Lee Jackson, the man whose blood was shed so that others could march. Jimmie Lee Jackson was born December 16, 1938 in Marion, Alabama, a small town shaped by poverty of Jim Crow and the resilience of black families. He was raised by his mother Viola and his grandfather Cadre Lee. Jimmy was more than just a name on the plaque. He was a military veteran, having served honorably in the Army. When he returned home, he worked as a woodcutter and laborer, quiet, thoughtful, and deeply rooted in his faith. He became a deacon at St. James Baptist Church at just 26 years old. And like many others in his generation, he believed in a better future, not just for himself, but for the generations to come. But Jimmie Lee just wasn't a man of faith. He was also a man of action. In 1965, the black citizens of Marion faced impossible obstacles just to vote. Literacy tests, poll taxes, intimidation, it was all designed to keep them quiet. Jimmy joined the Southern Christian Leadership Conference and the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Alongside his mother and grandfather, he began attending local meetings and peaceful marches. What many don't know is that Jimmy had been rejected from registering to vote multiple times. Even though he was a veteran who had served his country, this deepened his resolve. On February 18, 1965, he joined a peaceful night march in Marion to protest the arrest of James Orange, a civil rights leader jailed for organizing voter registration drive. As marchers gathered near Zion United Methodist Church, Alabama state troopers and local police ambushed them. The lights went out. The streets were filled with chaos. Jimmy, his mother, and grandfather fled to a nearby cafe to escape the violence. Inside, Cadre Lee, then 82 years old, was brutally beaten by troopers. When Jimmy tried to shield his mother and grandfather from further harm, he was shot in the stomach by State Trooper James Barnard Fowler at point-blank range. Fowler later claimed he thought that Jackson was reaching for a weapon, but eyewitnesses said Jimmy had his hands up. Some accounts said he even whispered, "I don't have a gun," as he was shot. Jimmie Lee Jackson lingered in agony for 8 days. He died on February 26, 1965. His death broke hearts and awakened resolve. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered his eulogy. Just days later, the Selma to Montgomery marches began. The first attempt, Bloody Sunday, saw marchers brutally beaten on the Edmund Pettus Bridge, but the world watched. And just months later, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was signed into law. And as a side note, in 2007, in an interview with James Fowler, he finally admitted to shooting Jackson 42 years after the fact. He was charged with manslaughter and served less than 5 months in prison. Jimmie Lee Jackson was not a famous leader. He wasn't a politician or a celebrity. He was a young man who loved his family, who believed in his country, and died for the right to be heard. Today he lies in a humble grave in Marion, but his spirit lives on. And if you never heard the name Jimmie Lee Jackson before, now you have. Let's make sure the world remembers him, not only for how he died, but for why he stood.